Okay. I'm Ken. I don't recognize any of the six people I'm in the halls, but I also work from home. I work for my own business now. I've been in the IT field since 1987, doing a lot of different things. So yes, I'm old. But anyway, I work from home, and when I started getting myself packed up to come down here, I was like, holy crap, how does this work? So it worked pretty good, except for, I forgot my iPad, which has my speaker notes on it. So that means we're actually going to be looking more at the code than me talking about crap that none of us really want to talk about. Oh, and hey, how about the presentation? That would be a good thing to open. My presentations are usually very short, also, so, and then I've got a little window here for my copy paste. So I'm just going to grab that, do that real quick. Alrighty. Nobody wants to see me type because it's pretty horrible. Since I work remotely, we do a lot of screen sharing type stuff, and I never really think about it until I'm actually that's not the view that I previously had either. We're getting my
speaker notes view.
I apologize. I haven't had these problems before. They are all happening today. Does anybody know, but I'll just...
What happens if you click on slides? Isn't there a presentation mode? Hit something for presentation mode.
Start from first slides. Yeah, I think you're right. I did something else. So I thought that was gonna...
There.
Yeah, but it keeps...
Oh, yeah.
Here, like it's gonna give me two different screens. Well, tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna improvise. You can see this part. This part's really short. So I mentioned 87. Spent most of my career at the city of Chattanooga, where I did just about everything except for networking. I've been a system administrator, a DBA for Oracle. I've been, hey Lee.
Oh, you know how to operate the recorder,
I've been an applications DB for Oracle e-business suite. I actually was the deputy CIO for the city of Chattanooga for a few years. It was the second worst job I ever had in my life. So I did that for I think 8 years, and then decided I wanted to get my hands back on things, and so I moved on. But anyway, in 2016 I started Webinology, which really was a company that I started because I was writing some software, and I just kind of wanted the umbrella of protection that you get with having an LLC. So that's kind of how I started it. We didn't really have there wasn't much of a plan, but over the years we have kind of honed our focus. And so for me, I'm a very server-side kind of person. I don't love CSS and JavaScript. I love good-looking websites, but I don't love those parts. So my focus has really been primarily on, on the server side things. And so what we've kind of migrated into, we don't actually do websites for people. We give people places for their websites, web apps, live in clouds, and do cloud architecture, design, all the server stuff, the maintenance, things like that. And just some stuff about me. I do PHP, Go, a lot of shell scripts, some Python, Manjaro. And because like I do that, right? Like, you know, if I don't see the apple on the back, I'm probably going to use this way much running, man. So I have 7 cats.
Wow.
It's true, yeah. 7 cats, 1 really adorable but goofy as hell dog. And then there are 3 other bipeds in the house. Play a lot of games. I love open source. Very, very into open source. Very into promoting it, things like that. So Ansible, this is taken from their website, which explains it kind of, but it website works, right? But what they're saying is pretty accurate. It is written in Python. It is open source. It's a Red Hat product. I know Red Hat is not exactly in the open source community's good graces these days. But hey, Ansible's good. Actually, I got the sticker. I got the sticker for the conference. I was like, I got a Red Hat sticker back there. I may just like put it. Anyway, but yeah, it is open source software. There's a lot of community involvement in terms of creating modules, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. The plan. So, who knows about Ansible? Oh my God. I'm so out of my league. I will sit with y'all at lunch because I got a couple of things I can do. So yeah, well that's good. I generally, because I don't know the audience, I generally try to orient the presentation around, introducing Ansible to some extent, but then the bulk of it is what can you do with Ansible, which always makes the presentation end up talking really fast, because you probably know if you're using Ansible, you can do anything with Ansible. So that's kind of the plan. Like if anybody hasn't used Ansible, we'll talk really briefly about the install, but it looks like that's probably a section that we don't need that much. You might see some things that you haven't done before. There's that old thing about you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes Ansible documentation is really great. I love it. I love all the examples, but it's kind of easy to, you're probably not going to sit down and read all of it. And so maybe I'll throw some things out that you'll see and you'll be like, hey, I didn't know we could do that. Terraform, anybody use Terraform? Cool. So, when you Google or search, I use DuckDuckGo. But anyway, when you search for Ansible, a lot of times it comes up with Terraform. And they're definitely not in conflict at all. Terraform, I think, is just great for the provisioning of the devices, and and then having that storage of your infrastructure as code. So I think it's great for that. And there was a recent conference, or Red Hat did a conference, and one of the things that got talked about a lot was Ansible and Terraform being more well integrated. They didn't give any specifics, but they talked about that. So definitely not a replacement at all for Terraform. So what's would you consider yourself, what's your primary role? Who would consider themselves like a DevOps or a sysadmin or developer? Yeah.
Recovery.
So I forgot to wash my other computer's a data center shirt. That's the one I wanted to wear, but I forgot to wash it. Installation. So most of you guys know this, but it is written in Python. It doesn't require an agent on the target servers, but it does require that Python be installed on the target servers. So, but you can install it in the package managers. I put Ubuntu up there. most of all our servers are Ubuntu. That just kind of seems to be an awfully dominant thing in the cloud these days. So, and I have nothing against Ubuntu. It's where I started with Linux. But yeah, it's in the package managers. You can install pip or pip-x. And the only thing about the managed nodes is that occasionally you'll have to install a Python extension. So there's one of my examples uses that. So we're going to switch screens. Did I open the terminal window? Nope, apparently not. So let's do that. And I want, ooh, no. I'm going to tab over to my list of commands. So again, I know a lot of you are familiar with Ansible. You came in a little bit late. Are you an Ansible user?
No, just sysadmin background, but I've been at it for a while.
Okay, cool.
Ansible.
Cool.
Kind of like Terraform. I've been trying to study with Terraform.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that just for a second there, because they are very complementary. I think that's right about the point that you came in. I use Terraform as well. So one of the things that you can do with Ansible is the ad hoc commands, and I don't want to again spend a lot of time on things that are remedial since we have so many Ansible users here. So you probably know this. The thing is, I don't really use those much at all. I was going through the presentation yesterday with one of my coworkers, and he was like, and I made that comment, and he was like, I know I've seen you do it once. And I was like, yeah, I think about once. And I think it was probably that first one where I was running it so that I could look at, hold on a second, let me get the window straight. Okay, so that I could look at the disk space on the servers. When you're installing Ansible, so you install it with package manager, you install it with Python, whatever, then you just create a directory. You really need 2 files to be there. You need this. This is the Ansible.cfg file. And really the only thing that you need in here is to tell it where your host file is. Mine is usually in the same directory. So I have different folders that I set up for different workloads with Ansible, which is maybe not the cleanest way in the world to do it, but Logpath, that's very useful as well. But the main thing is to have the host file in there. And the host file is also referred to as inventory. And so what I have here is I've got 5 VMs on here, well, 4.5, because I mentioned as I was getting set up that I toasted one in about 5 or 10 minutes before I came in here, because I was testing something. So the host file can have groups. You can have the host be in different groups. But basically what you're doing here is you are telling Ansible how to find all of the servers that you have that you want Ansible to manage. So you can see that I've got some example groups like web and the dev group. You can have them grouped by geographical, data center, which I find to be convenient. Like, if you get up at 5, you're gonna patch and you're gonna reboot the servers, whatever. US West, they're still in bed. So things like that. Those are kind of handy. And then I like to put a group in that just has everything, although it doesn't really get used a whole lot. So when you run one of those ad hoc commands, like the one that I pulled up in the example, the one that I have that I'm most likely to use when you run one of those ad hoc commands. And I'll try not to make anybody sick with all my tabbing. It helps to go to the right directory. Had to reboot to get set up in here. So like if I run this command, that's this is an ad hoc command, and it's basically just saying I'm going to run this command and just a plain old Linux command on whatever servers I identify. And so like I picked the dev group at the beginning there and ran the df command against specifically the storage drive for those VMs. So that's why I grabbed in this one, just because it puts out that big list. That is something that I use periodically because it's kind of nice. I mean, monitoring is probably going to tell you if your servers are getting critically low on disk space, but some little commands like that, some of those I use. Those of you that use Ansible, do you use this much? Do you use ad hoc commands much?
I don't, but I have a very specific use case that I use it for.
Cool.
So I don't really use it on a daily basis. I use it more in a CI/CD pipeline.
Cool. I keep, speaking of use cases, I keep thinking one day I will set up where I can set up my laptop when I redo my laptop. Where I can set it all up with Ansible. Anybody use Nix?
I don't, my son does.
Yeah. That can alleviate that need, I'm told, but that's a big thing.
It's a slight learning curve.
Do what?
Slight learning curve.
Yeah. Does anybody use WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux?
I used to with
Yeah.
my last job. Since I got laid off, I reformatted the partition and just went straight Ubuntu.
I would too, and I'm a gamer. And I've tried the Linux. I mean, I've gotten some, well, that's not what this presentation's about, but I've gotten some games to work really well, and some just have not worked out. On Windows Subsystem for Linux, there's a little caveat about Ansible. So there is no Ansible for Windows. Ansible can use Windows as its target server. And so you can use Ansible on Windows. You can use Ansible to maintain Windows servers, configure them. But if you want to install it on Windows, you need to use WSL. And out of the box, WSL has, it inherits the permission scheme of NTFS, the Windows drive format. And so when you do the Ansible thing and you get it set up, you immediately get a message when you try to run it saying that your Ansible config file is in a folder that's accessible to the world. And you're just on your laptop or your desktop or whatever, and maybe it doesn't matter there, but it won't run. There's a little tweak that you can make to WSL. I have a note on here somewhere, so if you want to just yell at the end, but I'm also going to pass around my email address.
Actually, under WSL2, they push you off to Hyper-V that's running in Ubuntu, cut down Ubuntu.
Oh,
And then I think the regular Windows drive shows up under, I want to say /C, but don't quote me on that.
yeah. Okay. So I think Hyper-V is a pro feature. I had a pro license, but once I got this laptop, I
Mine
didn't
was,
reinstall it.
what is it's Home Pro, I forgot. Mine was not Home, mine was a step above that.
Yeah, that's the pro.
And it definitely was shunting me off to Hyper-V instance when I ran WSL2.
Gotcha. So bottom line, the Ansible commands are just simply a way for you to just go to the command line and communicate with one or more servers. And you can use any command that you would normally use on that server. Because of my just curiosity, I guess, I discovered a while back that Windows has the WinGet stuff, which is pretty darn cool for, you know. So you between WSL and that, you know, I would say that you could probably do a lot of things on a Windows server if that was your target. To me, and I suspect to you guys, because nobody was like, oh, I use the command line, or I use the commands all the time. The real need is the playbooks, right? I mean, that's where you can get some stuff done. And I have some sample playbooks that I'm going to pull up here. So I think I got everything updated back the way it was. We're going to run this one and then talk about it real quick. This is a pretty simple playbook, and I kind of have a guess that it is something that you guys probably do already if you are an Ansible user. So when we wanted to run just a command, it's using Ansible. We want to run a playbook. It runs Ansible. Playbook is the command, and I will target the dev servers again. And what we're going to do here is I keep my playbooks usually in a folder called DBS for playbooks, but I spelled it out just for this. So server package updates, and I didn't do that right. I can't talk and think at the same time. There we go. So we're going to limit this to the dev group, which was that first 3 servers. So obviously this is going to do the package updates for these servers. The limit parameter is how we tell it what we want to target, which in this instance I said dev. Let's do that global group. You can also global. So you can also put these braces after it, the square brackets, and you can specify specific things within the list. So global's the one that had all 5 of those VMs in it. Did I even start the 5th one? Because I wrecked it. Let's start it so it can it wreck it in a way that it won't boot. I wrecked it in a way that my example that I was targeting that with isn't going to work. So you can say, like, it starts with numbers with 0, so that would be the first one in the list. You can do like 0 to 2. Correct me if that's supposed to be a colon. I think colon is this one and that one. But anyway, you can specify, so you can limit within a group. We're just going to say global and hit that and let it run. And so what that's doing is just going out to all of those servers at once and doing package updates, which is this little group, this little playbook here. So some things to point out. So you can see at the top it says host all. So that is, in terms of the inventory, that is saying that all of the inventory groups are allowed. So you can make those more specific. Like when I spin up new servers and then I want to do the provisioning, I put them in a group called new. And my provisioning playbooks normally only target new, and they won't target anything else. So if you try to run it against something that doesn't match in the host at the top, it's just not going to fly, which has saved my bacon a couple of times. So I made a small reference to modules earlier. If I'd spent more time on the commands, the other thing besides an ad hoc is a module, is to reference a module. And so we don't really have any explicit modules referenced here, and we don't have anything that's outside of Ansible. And I'll explain what that means with the next one. If anybody, again, don't know what, don't know totally what your level is with Ansible. So just trying to balance it out. But if anybody has questions, hit me up. I'll be here most of the day. I may leave early enough to beat the traffic home. Anyway, so what we're doing here is we just have these steps. So this is, the playbooks are YAML. If you use Python, Docker Compose, you're familiar with the whole, oh, I didn't indent perfectly. That's the case. I'm using a JetBrains IDE here with syntax checking, and of course the one I picked, it didn't flag that. Typically though, you just get something like, if you get it in the wrong space, that won't work. It wouldn't work if we were doing that. So I'm going to put that back. But anyway, what we're doing, we're just going through those steps. It's doing the normal package update kind of things. It starts with, for Debian or Ubuntu, it starts with basically apt update. It does apt auto, the equivalent of apt auto remove and apt auto clean, and then here it's checking to see if a reboot is required. So typically, that's not a production thing for me, because you don't want to necessarily, just reboot anytime. Usually I'll run cron to go see if things need a one cron for seeing if they need reboots. That's a very simple playbook, and the thing is, what we see from the top down is, I seem to have collapsed something here. But what we see from the top down is everything is just listed in order of task. And so it's all coded in this one file, which is cool for some things. I've got to close that. And so this is a slightly modified version of my LIMP stack playbook, because we use Nginx most of the time. Started using Caddy some, and Track. But the E, it's not LAMP, it's LIMP. And so what we have is these steps, but they're listed as roles instead of having everything spelled out. So what that gives you is modularity. It gives you dry code where you don't necessarily have to repeat yourself. If the server that I wanted to provision was not a LIMP server, but I still needed Nginx and I still needed MariaDB, then another playbook could just run those steps. And the way that's set up is, on the left-hand side here where my code is, you can see that under playbooks, which is the folder that contains the playbook, I'll try to collapse that. I'm not used to the touchpad. Okay. So that folder for roles. So in the Ansible docs, they've got a couple of different structures for disks that they define. But basically, if you kind of match the structures that they like, it'll find things, right? And so that's generally pretty helpful. If we expand roles, you can see that each one of those individuals, like install MariaDB, install Composer, all of those, each one of those is a folder in and of itself. And if we start expanding those, what we will see is within them, you sometimes have, I'm looking for one that has, you sometimes have different things like this files folder. So when the Nginx, when you first install Nginx on a server, there's some math that you can do with the ulimit command and things like that to get your processors and things. So there's a little calculation that you can do to make the best choices for some of those values in the Nginx config. And so one of those things that I mentioned that I don't exactly, I was just struggling when I first wrote that for like, how do I do that in Ansible? Does it have a math module? I couldn't really figure out. I had spent a terrible amount of time on it because this is the way to do it too. What we basically have here is It's just running a couple of commands to get some information and producing a result, which, if we look at, that one should be open, which was also a very long one. If we look specifically at the playbook for that one, what you see is when it's doing that particular step, it saves that variable from the sh command. So what that step where it says get the number of processors, register it. So register is how you save the output to a variable in Ansible. So it's doing that grep to get that, to get the number of processors and saving it. It's doing the ulimit command and saving it in file limit. Then we're using a module to run that sh file. And that's one of the things with the folder structure, because my script is within that structure in a directory called files, it knows where to look for it. So it's going to run that file, it's going to save that output, and then it copies in my nginx.conf to the destination and uses it as a template so that the fields will be replaced with that information. And somewhere in here, I thought I had that open. Like I said, I had to reboot. I had like 50 windows to get back open. Anyway, when what it does with that though, the nginx.conf is basically a template file. So what you can see here, like the processors standard out. Ansible supports templating, and it has a name. I always forget what it is.
Ginger.
Thank you. So yeah, it supports templating. So when that nginx.conf gets moved in, those variables, the values just get automatically replaced. And so the calculations, that happens with the usernames. Like there's a step in there to install MariaDB, setting up a root password, things like that. You know, some of those are good places to do templates. We use DigitalOcean a lot, and the managed database for MySQL on DigitalOcean has some very specific parameters defined that if you don't change them on DigitalOcean, you need to change them sometimes on your development machines. So that's one of the instances where, like when we're installing Maria, it's going to pull in a template configuration file as it spins it up. So the provision, I'm going to run that real quick and then talk about one other thing. Just a second. So that is the provision limp, and I had previously been running that on that Web1 server, but that's the one I broke. Stop it. So we'll put that in here, and we will run that on dev2, which is the third. Nope. Actual 2. The middle one. So we're going to run that on the middle dev server because I think that's one that I don't have stuff on. I did spin most of those up for this particular session, but like I said, I was kind of playing at the last minute. So one of the things that we have is a playbook for installing WordPress. Love it, hate it. It's very popular. And I mean, I basically like it. I don't like working with it. I mean, I like doing the server-side work for it. That's fine, but I don't actually like that plugin ecosystem. It's just, and you know, anyway, don't love working with it, but I do like the product in general. But we use it. You know, we spin it up for people quite a bit. So we have a playbook that installs WordPress. All the way through, and it needs this to run first. because we need a place to put it. This is the, by the way, this, let me jump back over to that real quick. Oh. Keep hitting the wrong tab key. So that step, which was Python dependency framework. There we go. So I mentioned, you know, there's no agent that you have to install for Ansible on the target service, but you might have Python dependencies at some point in time that you need. So if you work with Python, you know, probably know about the, no offense, if you love Python, I really like Python, but I drive myself crazy with the package management stuff, and I use Conda sometimes, and I use virtual environments, and I think, okay, this is perfect this time. Anyway, and I hate it when people give you that like Python 10 or 3.10 dependency. A lot of the machine learning AI stuff that I play with, they'll work on 3.10 or they'll work on 3.11. They don't work on 3.12. And yeah, anyway. So this Python dependency here basically is just saying, hey, if this is not here, let's put it here. And it's specifically the Python 3 module for MySQL. Because when we get to the WordPress step, or Drupal, or anything else like that that we're installing, we're actually going to create the database for that particular site. And so that means interacting directly with MariaDB. And so, so we have to actually get into it. And that's why that's there. That is not required to just install it. It's required to like manage it. So when that whole lint process runs and finishes, then it will let me run the WordPress thing. And I want to just kind of show that real quick. I think we've got about 4 minutes left. So let's see, where are my files? Here we go. So this is the provision WordPress thing. And I have a browser window open. What we wanted a way for us to easily prepare sites for a client and be consistent with it. And that's one of the great things about any kind of infrastructure code type product is the consistency you get. You don't have to be like, wait, did I remember to do it? Where are my notes on this? You don't have to do that, right? So you get that standardization, and that's great. So what we have here is a product of me probably not restarting that after I was done. I'm not sure. This is the stuff I was fooling with at the last minute. And I should know better, but it was like, you're not going to make this one little tweak. Anywho, we're going to run. We're just going to see what happens. And if it doesn't work, you guys can just be like, okay, I will have lunch at his table and explain this crap to him. So you can see here that that's the wet one. Didn't want to do it there. That's the broken one. Stop. We're going to, do you guys use a lot of VMs? Because I use a lot of VMs. And that's one of the things that Ansible, to me, is really good for, is the fact that I can not have to do this over and over for any kind of test environment that I want. So that line that's about to scroll off the screen, the extra bars, that's where we're passing in username and the user email address, the things that WordPress is going to need if it tries, to create a user. So this is a really long playbook with a lot of stuff in it. And I think this sort of accentuates in part the value of having the modularity, things like that, because this is just built up of including the smaller roles. tend to use this sort of standard of the role name at Site Engine X and a step number for the role, and then the specific team. So if we flip back over, oh, I know what else I also need to do. So this isn't working also because I didn't change my set for host. 2.168.122. Roll the dice. Anyway, because we're almost out of time. Did you know the most important thing you're going to, some of you may have not learned anything about Ansible because you've used it a lot, but the most important thing to know, Ursula Le Guin, a science fiction writer, familiar, anybody? Yeah? Did I say the name right? The word Ansible came from one of her novels, and it was a science fiction instant communication thing. And so it was actually written, I think, in 2013, launched in 2013. It had on it a few years later. So that wasn't really the most important thing. With the modules, and again, you may know this, but you probably saw in these playbooks the reference to Ansible built in, which, open it up. So, I'm just going to grab one of these. So, where we say things like that. So, duh. Those are the ones that are built in, right? So, those kind of come with Ansible. You can install Ansible-core out of most package managers, or you can install Ansible. I'm not sure what the difference is. Always just install Ansible, or has fewer things. But I'm pretty sure these built-ins are all there. The built-ins are things they provide. So, like for instance, built-in script. We're gonna run a script. So there are tons of those. There are also tons that the community has provided. I think that MySQL, Maria. I think there's actually a separate one for Maria. I think those are community provided. RabbitMQ is one that we've used. There's an email module. I don't remember if it's built in or not. There are just tons and tons of these out there. And so if you go to the documentation, that sidebar on the left, one of the things it's gonna have is the list of the menu on the left-hand side. Where is it? Okay, so yeah, the menu on the left-hand side. It's like modules and plugins. You can just look through there and you can see whole lists of what's available, and then instructions with good examples. They're always good examples on how to use those. And those are great. If we had more time, we're working with a client now where one of the things that we've done is it's sort of the inbox model, I think is what it's called. Their website gets some information, they get a request basically, and they send it over to us and it goes through a message queue. We've got a Go program that we use to listen for the message queue and then immediately persist the information before it gets the acknowledgement. So then we've got it in a temporary database there. So for them we wrote an Ansible script that we ran out of cron that actually read the database, selected on things that were marked as new and therefore not processed yet, and then iterated in the Ansible script through those and acted on them, which in this case, they have a WordPress multi-site, adding new sites and new users based on their payment processing. So, but that's just kind of amazing in some respects that you can do that. We pushed it a little too far at one point because we thought, maybe we should write a program for this. So another thing that's on here is if you just kind of dig around, you will find where they talk about writing your own module or plugin. They give Python examples. It's written in Python. You know, Ansible's written in Python. So they like, I guess that's the preferred format. And basically what they say is, you've got access to all the stuff that we've got if you do it this way. To my recollection, they support any language. But, you know, Python is a more native tool to do that in. So we've actually started experimenting when things get a little bit complicated with writing our own at this point. So I'm going to shut up now and go to, I'm going to my last slide. You can take down the email address. I didn't really have any trouble filling up 45 minutes without my speaker notes. I love to talk about this stuff. I mean, it's, you know, it doesn't have to be Ansible. But, you know, if you want to drop me an email, do the plus, Scenic City Summit. I'll put it in the inbox early and make sure that nothing gets missed. But I'm totally happy to answer questions if you have any Ansible questions. Can't promise that I might not answer them back. But, you know, I do think it's a great tool. I love it. Love using it. It's obviously a big part of our business. If you have any questions, I can hang around for a few minutes, and I will be here most of the rest of the day. So, alrighty. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.